So we're going to restart number 4. We're doing limiting reactant, so we're doing 2 different mass to mass calculations. First of which is going to start with 46 grams of oxygen. On the bottom, I want the molar mass. Oxygen is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. So on the bottom, I have 32 grams of O2. Top, that takes me to moles of O2. Then we need to look at our coefficients to get our mole ratio. Moles of O2 is on bottom. So we have 6 moles of O2. Remember, those have to cancel out, so those have to be the same. We are going to, how many grams of water would be produced? If I look in front of my water, that is a 6 as well. So this is 6 moles of water. Our last step is to take it from moles of water. So on the bottom, I have 1 mole of water. To our molar mass again, to grams. So our molar mass of water, 18.02 grams of H2O. When I put all of that into my calculator, 46 divided by 32 times 6 divided by 6 times 18.02, I get an answer of 25.90 grams of water. If we start off with 57 grams of glucose, glucose is the C6H12O6. We need the molar mass for that. We have 6 carbons times 12.01. We have 12 H's times 1.01 and 6 oxygens times 16. I'm going to add all of those together. When I added all of those together, I got 180.18. So that goes down here. We are going to 1 mole of our glucose. In our next step, we're using our mole ratio. For our C6H12O6, it is 1. On top, we are going to water again, so the rest of this equation is the same as the top one. 6 moles of water. Our last step is to get to grams of water. So again, 18.02 grams of water over 1 mole of water. When I enter all of that into the calculator, 57 divided by 180 times 6 times 18.02, I should get 34.20. And that's grams of water. Now, when we are doing limiting reactant, it's going to ask you 2 questions on the test. The first one is, which one is the limiting reactant? The limiting reactant is whichever one produces less. So in this example, our limiting reactant is oxygen. The second question it's going to ask you is how much of whatever is produced. Then you also have to put our smallest amount. So our limiting reactant is oxygen. It is going to produce 25.90 grams of water. On the test, it will ask for both of those pieces of information. Now we're going to do our second limiting reactant question. So again, we're doing the exact same thing. We are going to start with 23 grams of iron oxide. Which one's iron oxide? It's going to be this FeO. And we put that over 1. So in our next step, we need our mass of FeO. I know O is 16. If I look at iron, it is 55.85. So when I add those two together for my iron oxide, I'm going to get 71.9. No, 71.85. Okay, and that's grams of FeO. On top, we have 1 mole of FeO. Next, we have our mole ratio. In front of our FeO, we have a 3 as our coefficient, so that goes here. What are we going to? How many grams of aluminum oxide will be produced? In front of our aluminum oxide, we have no numbers, so it is a 1. For our last step, on bottom, we have 1 mole of aluminum oxide. On top, we need our molar mass. We have 2 aluminums and 3 oxygens. Aluminum is 26.98. So now I have 2 times 26.98 plus 3 times 16. And we get 101.96. That is the end of our entering. Now we just need to enter it into our calculator. So again, we're going to take 23 divided by 71.85 divided by 3 times 101.96. So this is going to produce 10.88 grams of aluminum oxide. We have our next one to do. And for our second step, we're going to start with 59 grams of aluminum. Aluminum's molar mass is simply 26.98. On top, we have 1 mole of aluminum. For our molar mass, we are still going to Al2O3 or aluminum oxide, so that stays the same. 1 mole. On the bottom here, we have a 2 in front of our aluminum, so this is 2 moles. Our last step is to go from 1 mole of aluminum oxide to the mass of aluminum oxide. And then we're going to enter that into our beautiful calculator. $59 divided by 26.98 divided by 2 times 101.96. We're going to get 111.48 grams of aluminum oxide. So again, we have 2 things that we need to say. First, we need to tell our limiting reactant. Our limiting reactant is iron oxide, and it will produce 10.88 grams of aluminum oxide. For our last questions, so first we have find the percents of each of the following elements. Let me hit enter or delete a couple of things. So But we have room to write. Find a percent of the following elements. First, we have what is the percent of C in C6H12O6? Thankfully, we have already figured out the molar mass. However, we need to do it again. So we have C, 6 carbons. H, we have 12 hydrogens, and we have 6 oxygens. Remember, for this piece, it's important to figure out each bit as we go through. So you found those on the periodic table. Carbon is 12.01, hydrogen is 1.01, and oxygen is 16. When I multiply these out, for carbon, you should get 72.06. For hydrogen, you should get 12.12. And for oxygen, you should get 96. When we add them all together, we're going to get 180.18. In our first example, we are just doing the percent of carbon, so we need to take 72.06 divided by our total molar mass, and then we're going to multiply it by 100. When I enter that into my calculator, you should get 40%. Okay. For our very last part, we're going to do the percent of each element in silver nitrate. So we have 1 silver, we have 1 nitrogen, and we have 3 oxygens. Finding these from the periodic table, silver is 107.87. Nitrogen, 14.01. So remember, multiply each piece out. And then we're going to add everything together. So you get a total of 169.88. And now we're going to do each piece. So first I'll do percent silver, 107.87 divided by 169.88. Then I'm going to multiply by 100. For silver, you should get 63.50. Our next one is percent N. So that is 14.01 divided by our 169.88 times 100. Should get 8.25%. For our final one, we have percent oxygen. So, 48 divided by 169.88 times 100, 28.26%. Right? For our final step, you need to balance equations. These have been fixed for my in-person kids, so make sure you know how to balance equations. First, we count. Remember, every capital letter is a new element. The only ones off in our first one are our O and our O. The lowest common multiple between 3 and 2 is 6. So on the left side, in order to get 6 O's, I need to multiply by 2. That is going to change my sodium, my chlorine, and my oxygen. To get my oxygen to 6 on my right side, I need to multiply by 3. But I also need to fix my sodium and chlorine, so I'm going to put a 2 as a coefficient there. Okay. For our next one, we have zinc and zinc, hydrogen, and chlorine. Our hydrogen and chlorine do not match. On the right side, they are 2. On the left side, they are 1. So I need to multiply my left side by 2 to make those equal. If you're my in-person student, this problem looks completely different to you because it is. Your in-person, the one on your study guide, was already balanced. For this example, we have nitrogen, hydrogen, chlorine, and calcium. Oh, we also have oxygen. For our hydrogen, we have 4 over here and 2 over here for a total of 6. Okay, so I'm going to write it exactly the same. For my oxygen, I only have 1 of those. For my nitrogen, I have 1. Hydrogens, I have 5. Calciums, I have 1. Chlorines, I have 2. First thing I notice is that my chlorine is different, so I'm going to go ahead and put a 2 here. That makes my chlorine the same. Changes my nitrogen to a 2. Changes my hydrogen to a 10. Okay. Now, things that are not the same are my nitrogens. So I'm going to put a 2 here. That is going to change my nitrogen. My hydrogen will then be 6, 7, 8. Things I notice are that my oxygens are not the same and my hydrogens are not the same. In order to balance my oxygen, I'm going to put a 2 in front of my H2O. That is going to give me my two oxygens. It will also change my hydrogen. So I have 6 here and then 4 here for 10 total. And then everything balances. For our very last selection, we have K, Cl, and O. The only thing that isn't balanced are our oxygens. Again, the lowest common multiple is 6, so I'm going to multiply this side by 3, this side by 2. That also changes my potassium and my chlorine. So now I need to multiply my right side potassium chloride by 2 to change those. And then everything is happy. If you have a question that I did not cover or just any questions in general that you need extra help explaining, please let me know. I will be more than happy to help you. If you are in person, our B test first hour is May 18th. And then May 19th, again, is first hour A, kids. On the 20th, I have my second hour test. for B. And on the 21st, I have my second hour exam on A. If you guys have any questions, let me know.